Human becomes the bodyguard for twin alien women, and now he's in their bed. The spaceport of Cavus. 9 was a glittering lie. From the outside, it shimmered with steel towers and gold-laced banners, but beneath the surface, every shadow hid a knife. Daniel Reeve knew at the moment his boots touched the deck. He wasn't here for sightseeing. He was here for a contract, one that came with triple the usual pay and a warning: protect the Vela twins at all costs. He met them in the embassy's private garden, where tall crystal flowers swayed under a purple sky. Lyra and Sarah Vela were unlike any women he'd ever seen. Tall, lithe, with skin that shimmered faintly in sunlight, eyes like molten silver. Identical in every way except for their hair. Lyra's was a cascade of midnight blue, Sarah's a fiery gold. "Daniel Reeve," Lyra said with a faint smile. "Our new shadow." Sarah tilted her head. "Or shield. Which do you prefer?" He gave the honest answer. "Shield." The first attempt on their lives happened before sunset. A delivery drone exploded outside the garden gates, shattering the crystal flowers into lethal shards. Daniel shoved both women to the ground, his body covering theirs as fragments sliced the air above them. When the danger passed, he stood, scanning the sky, hand still on his sidearm. "You're bleeding," Sarah said, pointing to a cut on his cheek. "Not my first scrape," he replied. "But someone out there's making this personal." Lyra's voice was low. "It's the council. They want our claim to the throne erased." Daniel understood then. This wasn't just about guarding 2 alien women. This was about surviving a royal blood feud. Days turned into a blur of close calls, poisoned drinks, rigged grav lifts, masked assassins in the night. Daniel's instincts never failed him. He'd tackle, block, or drag them out of harm's way, every time ending up far closer to them than protocol allowed. One night, after foiling an ambush in the palace atrium, they cornered him in their chambers. "You can't keep this up without rest," Lyra said, her voice edged with worry. "I don't have the luxury of rest," Daniel replied. "Not until you're safe." Sarah stepped closer, her silver eyes searching his. "You've saved our lives 6 times in a week. No one has ever done that for us." Something unspoken passed between them then, the kind of connection forged not by words, but by shared danger. The attack that changed everything came during the coronation parade. The streets of Cavus, 9 were filled with cheering crowds, banners fluttering in the warm wind. Daniel walked between the twins' hover carriage and the crowd, scanning every face. He saw it, the glint of a sniper's scope in a high window. "Down!" he roared, leaping onto the carriage. The shot cracked through the air, grazing Lyra's shoulder. Sarah screamed, pulling her sister close. Daniel returned fire in a heartbeat, the sniper dropping from view. The rest of the parade was chaos, but they reached the safety of the palace alive. Lyra's wound was shallow, but Daniel refused to leave their side that night. It was late, the moons of Cavus, 9 casting pale light across the palace gardens, when they invited him into their private suite. "You can't guard us from outside the door anymore," Sarah said. Lyra added softly, "Stay here, at least tonight." He hesitated. "That's not standard procedure." Lyra's smile was faint. "Neither is our situation." They were already in their nightrobes, flowing silken fabric that shimmered like liquid metal. The suite smelled faintly of the crystal flowers from the garden where they first met. They sat on the vast bed, patting the space between them. "You've kept us alive," Sarah whispered. "Let us keep you close." Daniel lay back, still half alert, but the warmth of their presence and the steady rhythm of their breathing worked against his vigilance. The danger wasn't gone, but in that moment under the twin moons, it felt far away. Morning came with the sound of alarms. Daniel was already moving, rolling from the bed, and grabbing his weapon. Lyra and Sarah followed, eyes wide but steady. The attack came from inside the palace this time, a betrayal from one of the royal guard. They fought together, Daniel covering them with his blaster, Sarah disarming one attacker with a precise strike, Lyra sealing the chamber doors. By the time reinforcements arrived, the would-be assassins lay unconscious on the floor. When it was over, Lyra touched Daniel's arm. "You don't just protect us," she said. "You fight with us." Sarah's gaze softened. "You're more than a bodyguard now." The coronation succeeded 2 days later. Lyra and Sarah were crowned joint rulers of Cavis. 9, their silver eyes meeting Daniel's across the hall. He remained behind them, where a bodyguard should stand, but when the celebrations ended, they found him again. "You know," Sarah said with a sly smile, "a bodyguard's job is never truly done." Lyra added, "Especially when he's already in our bed." That night, under the moons and the faint shimmer of the crystal flowers outside their window, Daniel realized something. He hadn't just taken a contract. He'd taken a place in their lives, and maybe, just maybe, in their hearts. Daniel Cade had worked 100 jobs in the fringe systems, but this was the first time his contract began with the words, "Do not look them directly in the eyes for too long." He'd been hired at the Outer Rim port of Harvin, 6, handed a sealed datapad, and ferried aboard a sleek silver courier ship bound for the capital of Valis Prime. The datapad gave him his mission in stark terms. Protect Liara and Celine Vera, heirs to the Twin Crown. Duration, indefinite. Hazard level, extreme. The hazard level turned out to be an understatement. He first met the twins in the Royal Gardens, a sprawling glass dome habitat filled with tall, crystal-leafed trees and pools of black water that mirrored the red sky above. Liara was the first to speak, her voice low and smooth. "You're the human they sent?" Daniel gave a short nod. "Daniel Cade." "I've been briefed." Celine's smile was sharper. "Briefed?" "No, Daniel. You've been warned." The sisters were identical but for their hair. Liara's a cascade of dark silver, Celine's pale gold, and the faint differences in the way they looked at him. Liara studied him like a puzzle. Celine studied him like prey. Within an hour of his arrival, someone tried to kill them. A royal envoy was delivering gifts when a crystal urn shattered, releasing a cloud of nerve spores. Daniel's reflexes took over. He slammed the sisters to the ground, yanked a filter mask from his belt, and triggered the garden's emergency vent system. The would-be assassin never made it out of the palace. That night, Daniel didn't sleep. Neither did the sisters. The next days were an endless sequence of threats. Poisoned wine, sabotaged grav lifts, even a swarm of razor-winged drones in the throne hall. Every time, Daniel was faster, stronger, and more ruthless than the attackers expected. But the palace wasn't just a battlefield. It was a political nest of vipers. The Twin Crown was both a blessing and a curse. By ancient law, the sisters had to rule together, but half the High Council wanted Liara dead so Celine could be manipulated, and the other half wanted Celine gone so Liara could be their puppet. Daniel's job was to make sure neither side succeeded. One evening, after foiling an ambush in the moonlit corridors, he found himself in the sisters' private suite. Celine poured dark amber wine into 3 crystal cups. "To survival," she said, holding one out. Daniel took it, his gaze scanning the balcony for threats. "I don't drink on duty." Liara smirked faintly. "Then drink as a guest, not as a guard." He allowed himself a sip. The wine was spiced and sweet, and for the first time since arriving, the tension in his shoulders eased, but not completely. "You've saved our lives 6 times this week," Celine said. "Do you ever stop to think why?" Daniel's answer was steady. "Because that's my job." Liara's eyes glinted. "Or because you want to?" The most dangerous attempt came during the coronation festival. The capital's sky was filled with lightcraft and fire flowers exploding in red and gold arcs. The sisters stood on a floating dais, waving to the crowd. Daniel posted 3 steps behind. He caught the faint shimmer of cloaking tech in the air above, too far for palace sensors to catch. In one motion, he drew his sidearm and fired. The air rippled, revealing an assassin mid-leap, twin plasma knives in hand. Daniel slammed into him before the crowd even knew what was happening, sending both of them tumbling off the dais and into a lower balcony. By the time he returned, the assassin was unconscious and bound. The sisters didn't cheer. They just looked at him, a silent, unreadable exchange. That night, rain swept across the palace spires. Daniel was stationed outside the sisters' chamber door when Liara opened it. "You can't guard us from the hallway," she said. "Not anymore." Celine appeared behind her, the faintest smile on her lips. "Come inside, Daniel." He hesitated. "That's not standard procedure?" Liara finished for him. "Nothing about us is standard." The suite was dim, lit by the glow of the storm beyond the glass walls. The air smelled faintly of the crystal flowers from the gardens. The bed was massive, draped in fabrics that shimmered like starlight. The sisters sat side by side, watching him with that same unsettling, knowing look. "You've bled for us," Celine said. "We trust you more than anyone in this palace." Liara's voice softened. "And trust is rare here." Daniel stayed. Not because of orders, but because something in their words, in their eyes, told him the real danger wasn't out there anymore. The alarms came at dawn. Daniel was already moving when the first blast shook the palace. Armed rebels had breached the royal wing, an inside job. He pulled the sisters behind an overturned table as plasma fire ripped through the air. Celine grabbed a fallen guard's weapon and returned fire with deadly precision. Liara activated the room's emergency shields, sealing the chamber. Daniel cut down 3 attackers who managed to slip inside before the shields closed. When the smoke cleared, the room was littered with unconscious or dead rebels. Breathing hard, Daniel turned to find both sisters staring at him. Not in fear, but with something else entirely, something fierce and unspoken. The rebellion was crushed by nightfall. The council swore loyalty to the sisters, but Daniel knew better. Power only ever slept, it never surrendered. When he returned to the suite, the sisters were waiting. Celine stepped closer, her hand brushing his arm. "You fought with us," Liara added, "and for us." Daniel gave the smallest of nods. "That's the job." Celine's smile was dangerous. "No, Daniel. That's loyalty." They led him to the bed again, not as a guard, but as someone they had chosen to keep close, in their chambers, in their confidence, and perhaps in their hearts. For the first time in his life, Daniel realized the line between duty and something far more dangerous had vanished. And he didn't mind at all.